Heaven erupts on the Bet stage when gangster rap and gospel collide. When Deitrick Haddon shared the stage with GloRilla, you won't believe the conflagration that ensued. That GloRilla, indeed. Leandria Johnson, a gospel superstar, is now speaking out. This tale completely upended the gospel world, causing everything from backstage betrayals to furious online reactions. However, everyone was stunned by what Leandria said about Chile. And believe me, when I say that you must hear this before it is forgotten, what actually transpired at this year's Bet Gospel Awards. Then, at one point, gospel fans anticipated a night filled with pure worship, power, and praise. Next up comes GloRilla, a secular rap artist whose lyrics and way of life don't exactly scream Sunday church. Performed by Deitrick Haddon, the internet was enraged at the performance. Church leaders are rushing to respond as the gospel spirals into chaos. Leandria Johnson, who is renowned for her unvarnished honesty and stirring testimonies, is now speaking up. She didn't hold back, you guys. We're delving deeply into the entire timeline of events in this video. Fan indignation, behind-the-scenes reactions, and how Leandria's forceful retort changed the course of the entire discussion. We have stunning social media posts, unique statements, and receipts that were never meant to be seen. The true story, not just the one that went viral, will be told to you. You'll see why this scandal has the potential to permanently alter the gospel music industry by the end of this film. There will be more than one performance, so get your tea. The future of gospel music, hazy boundaries, and whether Leandria simply became the voice we didn't realize we needed are all topics covered in this. Oh, and believe me, when we expose who was actually pulling the strings behind the scenes, it becomes even more chaotic. It all began with the Bet Gospel Celebration, which was billed as one of the holiest evenings in gospel performance, a night dedicated to celebrating religious luminaries, honoring the traditions of gospel music, and uplifting the soul with worship and praise songs. However, in a surprising turn of events, gospel singer and pastor Deitrick Haddon introduced GloRilla, the gritty, unrepentant Memphis rapper famous for her club songs, streetwise brand, and racy lyrics. Cameras recorded people's jaws dropping. It was awkward applause. Some were furious, while others were perplexed. It felt purposeful rather than merely unexpected. In their remix, Deitrick and GloRilla combined trap beats with gospel choirs. Yes, the lyrics were changed, but the whole atmosphere was still so powerful that it shook both platforms and pews. Within a few minutes, a large number of churchgoers went to social media, overflowing timelines with terms like sacrilegious, mockery of worship, and this ain't gospel. However, the gospel community itself produced the most critical responses. Deitrick's lifelong contemporaries, artists, and clergy were taken aback. Bet executives apparently pressured Deitrick to do something daring and genre-bending in order to increase ratings, according to rumors that started to circulate. Oh, he bent it perfectly. The topic alone put Twitter and Instagram into a frenzy for days as people began to argue. Was this performance a betrayal of the gospel, or was it a bold move to reach the unchurched? However, there was a more contentious development going on behind the scenes, so that's not even the true twist. And up until now, Leandria Johnson has been silently observing all that has happened. Now, if anyone has the ability to upend the gospel industry, it's Leandria Johnson. Leandria has lived her life out loud, from winning Sunday best to publicly fighting addiction, being turned away from church, and even getting arrested before a show. And because she never backs down from a challenge, she has amassed a devoted following. Therefore, people started looking to Leandria as soon as this Deitrick GloRilla performance went viral. Would she be in favor of it? Would she say nothing? Or would she expose the hypocrisy in the gospel industry as she has done in the past? She didn't remain silent for very long though. Leandria didn't merely express a passive viewpoint in a since-deleted Instagram Live. Her intense emotional response left the audience stunned and lighted up the entire room, without glitter or makeup, and with a voice that shook from what sounded like fury and disappointment. "You guys keep asking me what I think," she remarked. Here it is, then. Ministry was not the focus of that stage. It had to do with marketing. It wasn't a compliment. It was a performance. I'm not here for it either. While the people who truly need God are out here dying, we're over here watering down the gospel for claps and views, she continued. I didn't feel 1 ounce of oil in that performance. If you're going to bring someone like GloRilla into the gospel space, it better come with more than a beat drop and auto-tune. It better come with an anointing. The comments section exploded, with some praising her for standing on biblical principles and others accusing her of being judgmental and out of touch with modern gospel evolution. One thing, though, is certain. Leandria took the mic and said what many were afraid to say aloud: "You sold your soul for a Betty check, but don't come crying when the Holy Spirit packs up and leaves your churches. This ain't what God called us to do." Wow, let that sink in. This wasn't just about Deitrick. From previous performances, where gospel artists were compelled to incorporate more mainstream appeal to conversations she claimed to have had with industry insiders cautioning her against speaking out, Leandria was blatantly criticizing a system that has been infiltrating gospel music for years, and she had the receipts to support her claims. Here's where it gets even wilder, though, because rumors have it that Deitrick saw her live and then shocked everyone with what he did next. Deitrick Haddon quickly learned about Leandria Johnson's passionate Instagram live, and judging by the way he handled it, he didn't take it lightly. Within a day, Deitrick took to social media, this time on Facebook Live, where his tone was notably abrasive, defensive, and full of righteous indignation. At first, he did not name names, but it was clear that he was pointing directly at Leandria. "Some people out here talking real loud," Deitrick said. "I've been fighting for years to bridge the divide between the streets and the saints, but they forget that I was at the forefront of transforming gospel music before they even had a platform." Then came the subtle shade: "If you're truly about ministry, then go minister. The church is no longer just four walls, so don't sit in your house dragging people who are trying to reach the lost." And that was only the warm-up, because, a few hours later, screenshots that were purportedly leaked by one of Deitrick's team members showed private direct messages between Deitrick and Leandria. Online users were taking sides, supporting Deitrick for his audacious outreach strategy. The messages haven't been verified by either party, but if they are authentic, they depict Deitrick cautioning her to stop the public criticism and reminding her, quote, "You've had your moments too." As if things couldn't get any messier, GloRilla, who had been silent during the controversy, finally spoke up in a brief video posted to her TikTok with the caption, "I didn't ask to be in y'all's church beef, but here we are." Others were doubling down with Leandria, insisting that gospel should never be compromised just to be trendy. She dismissed it with laughter, but her remarks in the video, "I received an invitation to perform with Deitrick," caused even more people to take notice. According to that man, it was about reaching out to new people and removing obstacles. "I'm not attempting to offend anyone. I also think that God exists. I simply approach it differently." That one phrase went viral on the internet. Now the conversation had officially exploded beyond music. She continued, "If you're mad at me, maybe you should be mad at the people who booked me." Deitrick and Gloria weren't the only ones involved. It was about who gets to set the rules, who controls gospel music, and whether or not the distinction between marketing and ministry is now entirely blurred. This is where things get really dodgy, though, as leaked audio of a bet producer acknowledging that the GloRilla segment was forced against Deitrick's initial desires is currently making the rounds online. Was this all part of the plan, or was he set up? As social media erupted in flames and the gospel community was split, an unforeseen event struck the internet like a wrecking ball. An audio recording purportedly taken from a bet production meeting that was leaked a few days prior to the Gospel Awards ceremony. The tone and approach of the recording, which was initially posted by an anonymous account on X, previously Twitter, are astounding. It seems to show a senior producer from Bet talking about performance ideas. If Deitrick's willing, pairing him with someone like GloRilla could blow this show up. The voice in the clip states, "We need viral moments. People don't talk about traditional gospel anymore. We need that tension. Church versus culture." Yes, you heard correctly. This could blow this show up not for God's glory, but for views, clicks, and trending hashtags. Fans and artists alike were shaken by this revelation, which suddenly turned the focus from Deitrick and Leandria to the corporate fingerprints behind gospel's changing image. Many fans began to ask the inconvenient question, was Deitrick coerced into this? Or worse, was he complicit all along, knowing exactly what it would do? Leandria's earlier assertion that this wasn't about ministry, but rather marketing, now sounded more like a prophecy than an opinion. And just hours after the recording surfaced, Deitrick shared a mysterious Instagram story that said, "They'll use you," even though he didn't confirm or deny it. "They won't silence you, but they will spin you." Cryptic? Definitely. Intentional? Definitely. Meanwhile, religious leaders started to intervene, with some pastors publicly condemning Bet as a spiritually compromised event and withdrawing their sponsorship. Some defended the network, claiming that its time gospel changed with the times and adopted more inclusive strategies. Even prominent gospel figures, including Kirk Franklin, Tasha Cobbs, Leonard, and Jonathan McReynolds, were drawn to the controversy. They did not publicly comment, but they were seen liking and unfollowing certain pages. You guys dragged me for speaking the truth, but now the mask is off. If you think this was just about one performance, you're not paying attention. This is about the enemy infiltrating sacred spaces and passing it off as progress. And let's not forget Leandria. She went live again after the audio dropped, this time calmer, but even more convicted. Everyone was shocked when she went on, "I'm not perfect. I've done my dirty, but one thing I'll never do is let the industry pimp out my anointing." In addition to garnering support from other gospel musicians who had previously been silent, it also launched a significant internet movement with the hashtag #ProtectTheOil, urging gospel musicians to defy industry pressure and maintain their spiritual roots. However, what followed? Chile. The whole gospel community was caught off guard, and it came from a voice no one had anticipated. An unexpected voice suddenly broke the quiet just when it seemed like the gospel industry could handle no more of this conflagration. Bishop Marvin Sapp, of course. Indeed, the creator of Never would have made it. Marvin Sapp, using his Facebook page, one of the most well-known gospel songs of the past 20 years, gave a speech that left everyone speechless. There was no mess. It wasn't upset. It was strong, measured, and incredibly persuasive. Bishop Sapp stated, "I've been in this industry for over 30 years. I've watched gospel grow, evolve, and yes, even struggle with its identity. But what happened on that Bet stage wasn't evolution. It was confusion. And God is not the author of confusion." In a moving video that is currently being reshared across platforms, he went on, "We can innovate without contaminating. We can be bold without being reckless, and we can reach the streets without compromising the sanctuary. I pray for all the artists involved, but I also pray that we stop letting networks and labels dictate how we minister." Boom! People suddenly began to listen differently after a legend spoke. Bishop Sapp's naming of Leandria Johnson by name was likely the most impactful of his video's hundreds of responses from other seasoned gospel musicians, such as Yolanda Adams, Fred Hammond, and even CeCe Wyan, who shared the message with the straightforward remark, "Truth. I understand that your journey has not been easy, but you spoke with love and passion when you stated what needed to be said. Sis, don't allow anyone to silence you." That in and of itself confirmed what Leandria had been wailing about. At a time of industry turmoil, gospel aristocracy was elevating the lady who was once deemed too raw for gospel as a truth teller. It didn't end there either. Calling for a return to authenticity in gospel music, fan sites and spiritual influencers started using the hashtag #TrueGospelMatters. Online prayer circles were conducted. Artists started to testify about instances in which they felt under pressure to dilute their message for media outlets. Complete episodes analyzing the Deitrick GloRilla performance, the BT production leak, and the return of unadulterated gospel truth were broadcast on gospel podcasts. However, it was no longer merely commentary. It was change. Unfiltered worship nights were held in churches. Independent gospel musicians began revealing behind-the-scenes tales of being told to tone down the Jesus in their music after Leandria's appeal to return to spirit-led ministry served as inspiration. Some even dropped new songs like "Worship Not Performance" and "Oil Over Optics." And now for the most surprising part. Within weeks of the scandal, Leandria Johnson received an invitation to lead a grassroots gospel revival event called Residue Worship Without Apology. The community was shaken by the announcement, not because of who was there, but rather because of who wasn't. Bet well-known gospel labels and even some well-known figures who had kept quiet about it all. It was palpable in the air. Something was changing. This was no longer merely backlash. It was time to face up. It was forcing gospel music to face itself. And that mirror was held up by Leandria Johnson, unfiltered and worn out from warfare. Don't get it wrong though. The tale is not yet finished. because another storm was building when the church was celebrating Leandria. And it wasn't from the stage this time. It came from the legal department. Something more profound and sinister started to develop in the background as the spiritual conflagration continued. Legal action. Several gospel singers were now looking at legal options to break away from Bet after the public outcry that characterized the gospel awards as staged mayhem and the release of the leaked Bet production recordings. Some are even requesting that their performances be removed from streaming and replay services. Furthermore, two unnamed artists who were allegedly involved in previous discussions to be featured in the contentious piece stated that they had signed contracts with different conditions. Their legal representatives now contend that the final performance, which featured GloRilla, violated their agreement's provisions pertaining to spiritual alignment. Indeed, it seems that contracts for gospel entertainment now include a spiritual alignment clause. All of you, welcome to 2025. According to insiders, if the lawsuit proceeds, Bet may be accused of moral deception and violation of contract, particularly if it turns out that the GloRilla Deitrick piece was pushed at the last minute for shock value. As the leaked audio strongly suggested, Bet was ultimately compelled to speak up because to this expanding legal shadow. At Bet, we celebrate all expressions of Black faith, culture, and creativity, BT stated in a well-crafted statement shared on social media, adding that the Gospel Awards segment with Deitrick, Haddon, and GloRilla was meant to spark conversation about connecting generations. Let's dissect that. We apologize for any inconvenience it may have caused and restate our dedication to respecting various worship styles and musical innovation. They referred to it as discussion rather than ministry. Additionally, they acknowledged the suffering but did not offer a formal apology. However, it was too little, too late for many. The comment sections were swamped by religious leaders and fans. Some expressed gratitude to the network for recognizing their concerns. Others charged them with exploiting the gospel platform as a publicity stunt. You don't play with God's name for engagement. This ain't marketing. This is ministry, was one of the widely shared responses. Or it is meant to be. Anyway, after her final performance, Leandria Johnson stayed largely silent, but that didn't mean she was waning. On the contrary, she reiterated the same message on interviews on The Breakfast Club, Tamron Hall, and The Shade Room by the time the dust settled. I did my job if my voice caused people to reflect, pray, or consider what they're feeding their souls. I'm not flawless, but I'm genuine, and I don't hesitate to express what God has given me. The amazing part comes next. According to early rumors, Leandria might be working with a standalone, Christian production business to produce a documentary series called Behind the Industry Curtain, The Gospel According to Truth. Yes, a documentary that reveals the inner workings of the gospel music industry. Leandria isn't letting up. Deitrick Haddon's camp is still silent on the subject. According to sources, he has been the subject of severe scrutiny from both church organizations and former partners who are reevaluating their collaborations. He did, however, make a mysterious tweet that said, "They judge Jesus too, but he still changed the world." Interpret that however you want. Meanwhile, GloRilla, who has always been the viral queen, embraced the issue with grit and comedy. Days later, she posted a freestyle rap on TikTok, saying, "They say I'm too ragged to worship, but God doesn't need a dress code to find a purpose." In just 48 hours, the freestyle received over 3 million views, reigniting discussions about whether presentation or intent is more important in praise music. With division, challenge, and increased vigilance, the world is now watching. However, there is no denying that this event altered gospel music. It made a community ask, what is gospel truly about? And revealed the gaps between faith and celebrity, between industry and integrity. As voices like Leandria Johnson emerge from the crucible, unvarnished and unpolished, a new sort of movement is starting to take shape. Nobody took the lead by TV shows or statistics, but by individuals who are desperate for genuine worship, sincerity, and the presence of something more than praise. This is more than just a tale. It serves as a warning. You cannot dispute that what transpired on that stage ignited something more profound. Regardless of your stance on the matter, we would like to hear from you now. Was this simply the evolution of the gospel, or do you believe Deitrick Haddon went too far? Please share your opinions in the comments section below. Remember to press the bell, like, and subscribe for